Exodus chapter 3. Exodus chapter 3, reading from verse 1. Now Moses was pasturing the flock of Jethro, his father-in-law, priest of Midian. And he led the flock to the west side of the wilderness and came to Oreb, the mountain of Elohim. The angel of Yahweh appeared to him in a blazing fire from the midst of a bush. And he looked, and behold, the bush was burning with fire, yet the bush was not consumed. So Moses said, I must turn aside now and see this marvelous sight, why the bush is not burnt up. When Yahweh saw that he turned aside to look, Elohim called to him from the midst of the bush and said, Moses, Moses. He said, Here I am. Then he said, Do not come near here. Remove your sandals from your feet, for the place on which you are standing is holy ground. He said also, I am the Elohim of your father, the Elohim of Abraham, the Elohim of Isaac, and the Elohim of Jacob. And Moses hid his face, for he was afraid to look at Elohim. And Yahweh said, I have surely seen the affliction of my people who are in Egypt, and have given heed to their cry because of their taskmasters, for I am aware of their sufferings. So I have come down to deliver them from the power of the Egyptians, and to bring them up from that land to a good and spacious land, to a land flowing with milk and honey, to the place of the Canaanite and the Hittite and the Amorite and the Perizzite, the Hivite and the Jebusite. And now, behold, the cry of the sons of Israel has come to me. Furthermore, I have seen the oppression with which the Egyptians are oppressing them. Therefore come now, and I will send you to Pharaoh, so that you may bring my people, the sons of Israel, out of Egypt. But Moses said to Elohim, Who am I that I should go to Pharaoh, and that I should bring the children, sons of Israel, out of Egypt? I'll pause right here. Today, I'd like us to consider an important subject which should be real to all of us. That is about the matter of divine encounters. Divine encounters. And the reason I think it's important is this. There are many people, persons, who sit in pews, chairs, that fill places of worship. Many persons who have never had a real encounter with Yahweh, a real encounter with Him. You may ask the question then, why would someone want to be attending service, worshiping, so to speak, time after time, sometimes for years? Why would a person like that, who's never had an encounter, keep it up? Often it is because people do not fully understand what an encounter with Yahweh means. And they are on a trajectory, a path whereby they feel that all that is required of them is that they can be good enough, if they can live a kind of life that is acceptable to their fellow men, no cause no trouble, stay out that trouble, go to jail, don't take no drug, no drink, no smoke, be a good neighbor, be a good father, be a good husband, be a good wife, and so on and so on. That if they can do thus, and they keep it up for long enough, till Yeshua comes or till they die, then they are assured of a place in the eternal kingdom. They are assured of a place in Yahweh's plan and purpose. And there are people and individuals, I say, that are in religious settings that have never really had what I would call an encounter with Yahweh. What do I mean by an encounter? I don't mean that they have never read their Bibles, they have never prayed, they've never sung songs and hymns, or for that matter, they've never testified. But what I mean is this: they cannot look back in their life and specify a day or a time or an hour or an experience whereby they could say, at this time, at this moment of time, I came face to face. I had an encounter that I never had before with the Almighty. And from that time on, my life has changed. The direction of my life has changed. My thinking changed. I made up my mind to serve Him at that hour. I have been pursuing that from that moment, whether successfully or unsuccessfully. I've had a real life encounter with Him. I want to say, the difference is this. If you were to take somebody like the Apostle Saul, in his own resume or recommendation, he said, concerning the law, I was blameless. He was not a saved man at the time when he said that. He was a Pharisee of Pharisees. He had the right pedigree. He was very knowledgeable where the scriptures was concerned. And he had a zeal for what he believed. He would not only fight you for what he believed, he'd get you thrown in prison and put to death. Such was his conviction concerning what he believed. But he had more or less grown up in a religious setting. He had grown up from the right pedigree. His father was a Pharisee, so he was going to be a Pharisee too. He was going to be a teacher of the law, and he was very zealous for what he believed. But he never had an encounter with Yeshua. It was all being done in his own strength, in his own power, through his own ability. He was keeping the law blameless, so he says, according to the strict requirements, but it was still all of flesh. It was self. It was not faith. It was him doing it because he had learned what Yahweh required, and his life was a one of discipline. And he had disciplined himself to obey to the best of ability what he had read, what he had heard, and what he known, but he never had an encounter. Until one day when he was going to Damascus to arrest some believers, having received letters from the high priest to put into prison those who were followers of Yeshua. It wasn't until he was on the road to Damascus that the Bible says a bright light shone. Fell on the ground, he was blind, and he heard a voice saying, Saul, Saul, why persecutest thou me? We know the rest of the story. And to the response to the whole argument, he said, what do you want me to do? What is your call for my life? What is your purpose for me? Why this encounter? What? You've appeared to me for a purpose. Every one of Yahweh's people must be able to say, there is a specific time and a moment, an awakening, and a time of enlightenment. A moment when I was probably at my lowest in life, when I was ready to give up, or a time when I was frustrated or confused, or another time when I was living it up to the hilt and pleasing myself somehow or another, and I was just arrested, stopped dead in my tracks, and pointed in a different direction. And divine encounter. Jacob, grandson of Abraham, had such an encounter. He grew up, his father was Isaac, his grandfather was Abraham. His father Abraham one day heard the voice of Yahweh saying, "Get up, get you to a land that I will show thee of, and I will bless you," and so on and so on. And he did that. Isaac also had an encounter with Yahweh. Yahweh spoke to him and blessed him. Now we come to Jacob. Jacob at this time was the son of Isaac, but he had not had a personal encounter. He wanted the inheritance, he wanted the blessing, and Yahweh had already prophesied it, he would get it, not to him personally, but to his mother. But I was speaking probably a week before, was it Zoom or somewhere, as to how Jacob used trickery, craft to get ahead. And he felt he was doing it was a good cause, he wanted to be inherited. And he got the blessing, and he got the blessing and the birthright. He got the two of them. Saying, well said. He's on his way, but he has to run. Because his brother will kill him now. Yeah. And while he was on his way, the night came. He was out in the wilderness, alone, probably afraid, because in those days there were wild animals and you don't have nowhere to stay. He found somewhere where he could lie down, stretch out himself, made a pillow, put his head on it, and went to sleep. And prayed that he'll see the next day. And in the night, he had a dream. You don't need to enlarge upon the dream, if you know the story well. So Yahweh spoke to him. Jacob spoke to Yahweh. And Yahweh spoke to him. And Jacob made vows that you will be my Elohim. If you will take care of me, if you will look after me and bring me back, I will give you a tenth a tithe. So he started to bargain with you. I'm a businessman. I'll give you a tithe. And Yahweh, at that moment, it was a moment of his first encounter. And that impacted the rest of his life and his journeys back and so on. Every one of us must have a time when we come in contact with the living Elohim, when we can say, this day, Yeshua met me. This hour, I had an experience with him. Through his grace and in his power, my life was transformed. I was changed and I'll never be the same again. Have you ever wondered why it is sometimes there are people who can be in church for years and they never change? Yes. You wonder why they're like that and they never change? It's like years come, years go, and there is no transformation taking place in their lives. It is as if they are the same old person, but they put on a kind of garment of religiosity. They are religious. They can speak the right words. They can pray. They can do all the kind of things that people do. They'll praise when it's time to pray. But basically, if you meet them in the raw, if you meet them outside of a church setting, if you meet them in their homes, if you meet them on the street or on the workplace, you probably would have a hard time telling the difference between the one you saw on a Sabbath or on a Sunday or whenever and that individual. Hallelujah. So it is like religion is something that they put on. and put off, instead of being clothed upon with the righteousness of Yeshua. They can divest themselves of that robe and of that garment and go on bad if needs to be. Sometimes we even hear them say, why? I wonder if you know always. I wonder if you know. Put up the cross, I'm going to lift you on. Put up the cross, I'm going to do so and so to you, and then take it back up, you know. No, we don't. A true believer is like that, you know. I put on the cross because we know that if we put on the cross, it's so easy. We might one day just put it on and about and take it up again. You know? Divine encounters. Moses. Yahweh had a plan for Moses' life. Before he was even born. The time when Moses had this encounter, he was about 80. 80. The first 40 years of his life, he lived in Egypt. Pharaoh's palace, grew up, so to speak, Pharaoh's adopted daughter. Adopted son. Pharaoh's daughter, but he was. He had a sense in his life that there was a purpose and a higher call in his life. The Bible tells us that even before Moses had an encounter with Yahweh, he says, when he killed the Egyptian, he thought that they would have understood that Yahweh was using him, that he wanted to start a kind of revolution, you know, start up something amongst the slaves and say, come on, we can get out of here. All you need to get yourself organized and get yourself into armies and make right representation, and we can get out of Egypt. And so come, let's get, he was trying to accomplish something that needed to be done, but he was trying to do it his way. Yeah. And that is why he got himself in trouble. Because when he saw the Egyptian abusing the Israelite, he knew he was an Israelite. It was no secret to him that he was an Israelite, and he probably knew that who his relatives were. And even though he walked amongst royalty, the palace, and dressed differently, because he was in a place, a preferred place of privilege by virtue of him being, so to speak, grandson to Pharaoh, he knew in his heart of hearts that those slaves out there who were being abused, overworked, taxed in every respect, were his own flesh and blood. And there was something that stirred within his spirit and said, we need to get out of here. You people need to get out of here. And maybe one day even talk to them. I don't know, we might have had a conversation and say, hey, how come in hundreds of years you've been here? You can't do something about it. You're not going to stay there till forever. Do something now. And none of they were dispirited, they were weak. Well, there's nothing they could do because the time of deliverance had not yet come. So he decided he was going to help things along. It is always a bad thing when we try to help Yahweh. You know that? It always turns out wrong. I remember the story of a little child who thought he was doing his dad a favor. Dad left the car out in the drive on the farm road. Dad had car had few scratches and so on. The child thought, I'm going to paint my daddy's car for him. He went and got a tin of paint and painted the car. Paint the car. When the dad came and looked at the car and said, why did you do that? But Daddy, I heard you said the car needed painting. So I was helping you, painting it for you. What could he do?
Nothing. At least he said nothing.
He can't do. I'm kidding. He was being helpful. And it's like that when we, in our minds, in our puny little minds, choose or decide that we are going to help Yahweh. His business is far above our intellect and our mind. He cannot, what he has planned, how it's going to be accomplished, only he knows how it's going to be done. And we have to take instructions from him. We cannot help him, so to speak. We are workers together with him because he calls us into his service. But we cannot do what he wants us to do unless he empowers us, unless he directs us, unless he gives us the resources and the help. There's nothing we can do for him. We are helpless. Listen, Saul was an intellectual giant before Yahweh called him. He says, I was taught at the feet of Gamaliel. In other words, the equivalent, I attended the best university of my day. My professor was no less than Gamaliel. I was taught by him. So I had a top-notch education. But now he says, I count it but no. Throw away. If he had a degree or certificate on the wall, take it down. Tear it up, dash it away, that he might learn from the best, the Messiah, from Yahweh himself. Moses was an accomplished man. History, not sacred history of the Bible, but other history teaches that he was an influential leader in Pharaoh's army. Being the son of Pharaoh would mean he would have privileges that others didn't have. He didn't have to run into the battle first. He could stay at the back and order them. He was probably an officer or a general. And through him, great victories were won. So he was not a pure man. He had military training. He had military skills and ability. That was what he had. Not to mention that the best education of his time. He wasn't a great speaker. Because later on when Yahweh did call him, that was his big issue. I'm slow of tongue. I'm not a very fluent speaker, but he was a man who could get things done. It would have been thought that as he was, if he was a great military general in the army and won many victories, if he was smart, if he knew the right contacts, moved in the good political circles, it would have been thought that here is a man that is qualified to lead the children of Israel. He would be ideal. He knew what the Egyptians were like, and he knew what the Israelites were like. So he would be the right individual to go ahead. And if there was the beginning of a revolution, an uprising or insurrection, Moses would be the best person to head it and lead it. And if it was going to be guerrilla warfare, Moses was a man, because he's a natural leader. There lies the problem. One day, he sees an Egyptian abusing an Israelite. Probably as Pharaoh's son felt he had the authority. Hey, Mr. Ham, you're expecting too much from the Israelite. Give him a break. And probably the man was ignoring him, thinking we don't know, say you're one of them. And he wouldn't stop. And he was laying into the Israelite and probably had him on the ground doing some stick and say, listen, you need to produce more work, man. You're taking too much time. Whoop, whoop. And Moses probably get it all over him and the man might have brushed him off. You don't do that to a military man who has military training. You don't do that to a Jamaican either.
Sure.
Moses grabbed all of him being too lit at the right place, as my father used to say, you might be in Sakulu. And he died. He died. You know, if he didn't mean to kill him, but the way he kill him. And they look around. You see, anybody that I look, the only person there was Egypt, was Israelite, was there getting beaten. Think I'm going to the sun, push me in and cover him up. One down. 2 million to go. Must have felt good. Must have thought to himself, boy, this will give me a high standing amongst my own people, because when they see the way that I stand for them, then they rally around me and say, well, yeah, well. Next day he comes and he sees 2 Israelites this time fighting, striving, brother and brother, over something. Probably arguing who should carry the load and who would have to carry it. So he thought, he came in as a peacemaker. Come on now, brothers. Come on now, brothers. Take it easy, take it easy. Your brethren. Stop the fighting here. Let's talk it out. One of them turned to him and said to him, wait. You think it's like yesterday? When you leave the Egyptian and bury him, I come here, come to kill me. Yeah, come to kill me. The man whom he had saved. So charged. Can I keep him on quiet? He charged. And the story spread far out. He said, oh, this kid was an Egyptian. You know here? Lick him down, kill him. Sorry for him, the Pharaoh right here. And when the man said to him, can you want to kill me like you killed the Egyptian yesterday? A realization suddenly come to Moses, said, watch here. This is no secret again. All I need to hide is in the sand. Better run, because the person he killed was probably a slave master, and Pharaoh, he tolerates Moses because Moses is his grandson, but it is not Egyptian. If he was a real Egyptian, Moses, Pharaoh probably overlook it. But he knew where Moses is. And when Moses had it up, he said, then the story is winding on. Better run. Run. Come out here before Pharaoh sent man to be executed. He ran, you know the story in the media, woman get married. 40 years. 40 years. That's another lifetime, almost. Equal to the period of time he was in Egypt, equal to the time. It's like it took 40 years to erase the first 40 years to get him ready for Yahweh's purpose and Yahweh's will. He was, now by the time he reached 18, he settled down. Having wife, have a couple sons. Settle down now. The burning ambition that was in his heart, perhaps it cooled. Cooled up. Nothing like to cool a person like time, you know. Time. Sometimes people eager to do this and do that. As time goes on, it's then slowed down. And well, Moses was like that. He slowed down. He was just went to live out. He was a shepherd. Instead of driving a chariot, he would drive goats and sheep. Learn the language of the sheep. You have to understand sheep. One day he's out there in the backside of the desert, making an honest living. The Bible says he saw a sight, a great sight. He saw a bushfire. A bushfire. I don't believe that the bushfire was an unusual event. because there's such a thing as spontaneous combustion. What was unusual about the fire was the fact that the bush, that the heat, you watch it and wait for it to turn to dust and ashes. The longer you look at it, the more you realize the bush did not burn. Look good. Look at the time and say, never have a watch like mine, but you look at the time and he says, 10 minutes now I watch a bush there now. We know how bush fire good to go. The bush still a burn. After a while, he said, "Come, we have to investigate this a bit better. The bush on fire can't burn." Now, two things about this burning bush. It is either that the bush is indestructible and can be consumed, or that the fire is a different kind of fire than he is used to. One of the two. Either the bush is an indestructible, and that is a real never dead bush. Or the fire is a kind of fire that he's encountering. The Bible says that the angel of Yahweh appeared to him in the midst of the burning bush. So there was an angelic being there that was being manifested as a fire. Moses said, "Draw near, go nearer to see what is happening." And as he came fairly close and he was about to stick another nearer voice, "Moses, Moses!" He stopped dead and shot the fire out. The voice was coming out of the bush. "Don't come any nearer." It's going up on dangerous territory now. The ground whereon you are standing is sacred, it's Kodesh, holy. Take off your shoes. Taking off the shoes was a well understood principle. Even in the East, when you go to the East in those days, and even probably today, there are certain homes when you go to the door, you take off your shoes before you go inside. Even some people, if I go to a person's house here in Jamaica and I don't know the person very well, and I look inside and I see them have a nice carpet and this and that, I will ask, shall I take off my shoes? Because they might not want me to come, especially. I don't really see here. So I asked, shall I take off my, and he said, wipe your feet, it's all right. I went, okay. But if there's a take, I will take it off. Yes. Because it's a polite thing to do. So it's like you're entering into somebody else's space. And you don't have a right. You just step in as you have a light. You know? It is their space. So when you have to take off your shoes, it's like you're saying, you're on my territory. You're on my ground now. And because I am here, my ground is sacred. You can form like a circle around this tree. And you come close enough, one more step. And you cross my line into my territory. Take off your shoes. You are on sacred ground. When Moses took off his shoes and fell down to his knees, Yahweh begins to talk to him. A voice coming out of the bush and begins to give him his future, tell him what he ought to do. And the scripture says Moses was so fearful, he was afraid to look at Yahweh. He was afraid to look. That was a reverential fear. Let me tell you something about people today. It's like people don't have reverential fear again. You know? Them and Yahweh is like them are playmates. There's the reverence that we were taught when we were young. It's not taught again. People just do what them like, say what them like, even dress how them like in Yahweh's presence and think it's acceptable. If the governor general came to town or the queen came to town, you couldn't go into a press and dress anyhow, you know. You couldn't. You have to dress properly, and you're usually coached what to say, what to do. I have been to sessions where GT has been present. And I remember one time he was in Nigeria and all GTs were there. We were coached. I was supposed to be doing the prayer at this congregation. And I remember somebody laid a credit to me and told me, and says to me, all right, Lord Children is driving at X number of minutes, this time. This is going to be done. It's going to take so much minutes. This is going to be done. You are going to pray, no advertise. You're just going to get up and pray for X number of minutes, and then you move on. You understand me? So everything is structured, so there's no, starting butter, starting butter, my old friend. It was structured, and reverence and respect was required. Moses, that first encounter that Moses had, impacted him for the rest of his life. Do you know that? That first encounter impacted him for the rest of his life. Yes, he saw great signs and wonders and miracles in Egypt. He saw the sea part, Red Sea parted. He saw, comes back and swallowed thousands. But that first encounter, that starting encounter, impressed upon him certain basic understanding of the one in whom he's dealing with. First, it's impressed upon him that the one who he's dealing with is set apart, is holy, or if you want to prefer the Hebrew name, Kodesh, set apart. And that was instilled into him. And he was made to feel, he felt afraid that if he took one more step, he could have died on the spot. He must have remembered how he felt and the trembling in his heart and said, is this really Yahweh talking to me, thundering in my soul, telling me my life's work? Is it really him? Doesn't he know that I'm not the right person, I'm not ready, or I'm not qualified? That initial encounter is the one that would live with him till the day he died. Yahweh reveals himself in different ways to people. And this is why I say encounter is important. Because that encounter is going to shape you for the rest of your life. Moses from that time knew that Yahweh was sacred. That Yahweh was not to be trifled with. For when Yahweh spoke to him and thundered into his soul of his work and call, and he heard that voice and saw that fire and realized that Elohim was appearing as a fire. Not as a consuming fire to the bush, but as a fire. Suppose in that bush, suppose in that bush, you have like what is in every bush. The lizard. Spider. Termites. Bugs. What do you think will happen to them? In another bush. That bush was going through a purification. The only thing leave is the bush. The only thing leave is the bush. And the fire is burning, burning, burning. Yet the fire is not consuming the bush. And this is saying something to my own heart concerning Yahweh's call to us. When we have an encounter with him, we're coming face to face with fire. A dangerous fire. I'm not saying Yahweh's only fire, we know he's love, his mercy is kind, but fire. A kind of fire whereby if he was a consuming fire, all of us would have been dead already. But the kind of fire it is of a purifying nature. Later on in judgment, you'll see him come as a consuming fire. That's his judgment. But as a purifying fire. And Moses is having an understanding that there is in Yahweh a restraint. He doesn't treat us the way we deserve. He doesn't incinerate Moses. He speaks with him. He not only speaks with him, he has a conversation, and Moses, he gives Moses a chance to raise objection. Can you imagine that? The mighty one who created everything, the entire universe, the stars, the heavens, the sun, the moon, every mountain, every river, every valley. He's having a conversation with Moses, and Moses is objecting to what he says, and he's still listening. How many of us would have that kind of level of toleration? You go to some workplace. You go to some workplace and you see some boss, and you are just a helper, or you just have them position, and them tell you to do something, and you dare to object. Where them going with?
Power.
Yep.
How dare you?
Yes.
You know what I say.
Well, I'm saying if you can't, if you don't want to come out, type place.
Yes.
And that's it's not the kind of attitude.
Yes.
Put them in a little uniform as well. Make it worse. Much less now we have the Almighty, the one who made all, who's everything you can see, brought it into being. And he's patiently dealing with a man who is to him like an ant. And Moses, after he done told Moses, I've called you, I'm sending you to Egypt. I want you to go down there and to speak deliverance to the people, for I have come down to deliver me. I have come down to set them free. I want you to go down and bring them up to the land of the Amorite, the Canaanite, and so on, because the cry of the children of Israel has come up into my ears, and I remember the promises I've made to their forefathers, to Abraham, that I will bring them up out of Egypt. Now is the time. I'm sending you to do the job. Sending you to do the job. Here Moses, I know you're sending me to him, he said to himself, I know you're sending me 40 years ago. When it is strong. 40 years ago, when we have Musra, and was a great leader, position and power. You never want me. No 40 years, 80, me at 80. You know, say Moses lived for 120 years. So his life could be divided into 3. 40 years in Egypt, 40 years in the wilderness, and the last 40 years. Know that me at 80. Can I draw my pension? Put up my foot. Enjoy my old age. Enjoy the grandchildren and the great-grandchildren that be coming along. And now you're calling me to go down to Egypt? To go to protect our people? No, Father. I don't mean. And we see Moses bringing up one objection of it. Where does he get the liberty to speak like that? Yahweh must have been so patient. He who was as a burning bush could have burned him up. Could have turned him into the burning bush and consumed him. But he hears the mighty one speak. He says, first thing first, Father, is some things you haven't thought about. Please, let me let you in on some information you're probably not aware of. When I go down there, the first thing they're going to ask me is, you've been away for 40 years, you know. And you say, who appeared to you in a burning bush? Sure. I am that guy. So, who are you? What is your name? Whom shall I say? to give assurance. He said, you shall tell I am who I am. You shall say to them, I am who sent me to you. Ayah, Asher, Ayah. From there the name Yahweh arrives. I will be whatever I will be. I shall be. And you shall say Yahweh, the Elohim of your fathers, Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, has appeared to me. This is my memorial, this is my name, my memorial to all generations. Go tell them that. Go gather the elders together. Tell them, say, I appeared to you. And I have come now to deliver them from Egypt. Moses listening, all that, everything that Yahweh says, all implicit shall come in his mind. You understand what you are dealing with now, because clearly you're overestimating me. I'm not qualified. Maybe if you recall me 40 years ago, but right now, Yahweh don't listen, I'm going to give you a favor. I'm going to allow you to do it. Yes, yes, yes. I hear you. I hear you. I hear you. And tell you something though. There is one little problem. Another problem that I don't think you have thought of. You say, you are the I am that I am, the mighty one. Somebody just have to go with two naked hands on the rod. What? I need qualification. Where's the qualification? Where we going to get power? Where we going to get the anointing? Where am I going to get the ability? Yahweh says, all right. What is that in your hand? That is my rod, my shepherd's rod that I use with to fight off wild animals and everything. Throw it down and throw it down. Turn into a serpent when Moses is ready to run. Yahweh said, whoa, whoa, whoa. Trying to impress upon you something. Pick it up. Moses, Yahweh can pick it up by the tail. Now, I don't have much knowledge about me. Normally, if you're picking up a serpent, the last thing you want to touch is the tail. You want to come to the back of the head, in case it spin around by. But Yahweh to take it up by the tail, so it took a bit of faith. And Moses' part to believe that something will happen when he touches the tail. He come up and hold the tail, and at the same time hold the tail, he feel the rat sticking up back on him. He said, watch yeah. No, this is important. Quote, Yahweh gave him two signs. It wasn't a magician trick. The two signs that Yahweh gave him had significance. They were teaching something about Yahweh and about deliverer. The rod being turned to serpent meant that Yahweh is the one that can create life out of what is dead. And he can also kill. He can also take away life. That is the main lesson. So only Yahweh can really do that. Later on when the Egyptians did the same, they did it by trickery. But Yahweh demonstrated when Moses' rod swallowed the Egyptian rod. Yahweh was saying, I'm going to swallow up what they do to show how weak and impotent they are. Like a lot of people are so-called performing miracles, and they like playing. A real one is not, that's not real, a lot of it. And sometimes the magicians, they can do it by their dark arts. They know how to do things. They're in touch with the realm of evil that can accomplish things. Yahweh said to me, there's another sign in the will. Put your hand in your bosom. And he took your hand and he said, take it out. And look, watch out. Am I on this? It was leprous. White as snow. Probably a dripping pus. Quick time. Where if you do with it? Yeah, I said, put it back.
I'm not doing 39.
You have to put it back. What is the lesson? What is it a sign? It's a sign that Yahweh can restore. He is a restorer. So that which is lost and corrupted, that which seems that it is helpless. Because if you have leprosy, that is there. It's like I said, it's a slow death. It's a slow death. And the fact that he could put his hand back in and it came out, and it came out fresh and clean, it means that Yahweh can take a hold of a life that seems so far gone. That seems that they've reached the end of their tether, the end of usefulness, and bring that individual back. And he can do it not only for the individual, he can do it for the nation. There is no hopeless case. So he is a restorer, he's a giver of life, and he's a restorer of life. Hallelujah. Praise his name. So those signs that Moses took, they were not just to impress the crowd, as if to say, get around, get around, get around. $10 to see me do this. It was to demonstrate a teaching to them that impressed upon them and says, this is Yahweh's doing. Only he can do this. He has an encounter with Yahweh. An encounter that is impressing upon his soul that would keep them for all his years. Then you'd have thought that that would have been enough. What? Yahweh's with me, man. Yahweh with me. Here Moses, no. But I still can't talk. After all right. So my rod can become serpent on me. Good. Still, now before I'm back, I try to find words. You get people at my tongue. I'm slow of speech, probably a thick tongue. I know people who are like that. You can't understand a word they're saying, talking. Yes. And then especially when they speak with an accent, it's worse. Yahweh said, who made man's mouth? Now me, if we didn't want you to be fluid and talk with your silver tongue, I would have given you one. But for reasons best known to myself, I am choosing you with your disability. I'm choosing you as you are. After all, the fact that you can't talk means say, nah, go down and go chat to what we never said. You're going to go down and keep your mouth shut until you hear from me. You know, some people have a wonderful speaking ability and they use it to the max. Yeah, I don't say nothing, but they have plenty to say. And furthermore, Yahweh says, all right. You know, if Moses had gone down to Egypt with him stammering tongue and slow of speech, so fear off, he said, come, say it again, say it again. He would have delivered them same way, you know. You see how the mind of people work? We think that we have to come up to, we have to be able to do this or that to be effective in Yahweh's hands. Not so at all. Yahweh will make us what he wants us to be. And he calls us from where we are. Let me tell you something. If you read the life story of Moses and you read the first 5 books of the Bible and you see when Moses started prophesying, you have to say, I him a blessed Israelite that you did say he can't talk. But read Moses' blessings and in praise. And the song of Moses and all the right song. You read about in the Revelation, the song of Moses and the Lamb. Who can't talk a right song? By the time Yahweh finished with him, by the time Yahweh used him and he realized that Yahweh is with me now, courage and confidence begin to come, and whatever impediment of speech that he had, it was forgotten. Yahweh said to him, listen, Moses, I'm going to send your brother with you, Aaron. He can, I know he can talk, so nobody has coming up. He can speak. In fact, he's on his way now. He will go with you. I want you to tell him, no, here is Yahweh. And the important things. in a call, if Yahweh called you to a purpose, nobody else can do what you can do or what you ought to do. Aaron is a fluent speaker. Why didn't just Yahweh say, all right, Aaron, use you to go before Pharaoh? God, Moses is like a dead weight. I use you. No. Yahweh has a long-term plan and a purpose. He says, I'm sending Aaron with you. He will speak. But you will tell him what to say. And he will shape it up in a nice way so that Pharaoh can clearly understand. See, Yahweh knew there were certain character flaws in Aaron. He knew that Aaron could speak well. But when the time for Aaron to talk, when they were in the wilderness, and said to the children of Israel, don't make no golden calf, keep him out quiet and go make the golden calf. So being able to talk is always a good thing. And last, Moses take off to go. After he done have an argument, a discussion with Yahweh. The Bible says Yahweh was angry with him. You can imagine Yahweh getting angry with this man. Because we think of Yahweh being so great, being so powerful. You could have just wiped him out like that and raise up somebody. But he tolerates, he puts up with the weakness, he understands our frame, the scripture says, that we are dust. And he sent him. Closing. An encounter. That encounter shaped the whole life of Moses. It impressed upon him certain own truths. What has been impressed upon you about Yahweh in your encounter with him? If you had an encounter, what has been impressed upon? Is it his holiness? Is he like a flame of fire? Is it that he's persistent? Is it that he's merciful, loving and kind? Is it that he's forgiving? Something has been impressed that will stay with us for the rest of our life. When Jacob was on his way back from his uncle Laban, there came a point in his life where Jacob said, let us go back to Bethel. What is Bethel? What Bethel mean to him? Bethel was the place of his first encounter. He wanted to go back to Bethel, and when he wanted to go back to Bethel, he said to his household, put away all the idols.